The realm. Do you know what the realm is? It's the 1,000 blades of Aegon's enemies. A story we agree to tell each other over and over till we forget that it's a lie.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back for another Game of Thrones Season 8 video. Today I want to read a very fascinating theory about our old friend Sir Jaime Lannister. Now I do want to say this does go completely against all of my own beliefs, but this was so well done that I just had to read it to you anyway. Some of you may categorize it as another one of those crazy ideas, but it is backed up by some very interesting evidence to say the least. For those of you who would like to read the original essay, I will have that link down below, but let's get started because there is a lot to go over. In today's video, I will provide the evidence for my assertion that Jaime Lannister is Azor Ahai, the prince that was promised, and the Valonqar all wrapped up into one shiny, morally confused package. Before we begin though, let's summarize Jaime's narrative. A Song of Ice and Fire and Game of Thrones closely follows Jaime, aka the Kingslayer, as he painfully examines the nature of his character in order to undergo an impressive redemptive transformation. For many of us, Jaime has fundamentally changed from someone we absolutely detested early on to someone we, well, kinda like. I hope to explain to you here how each of the prophecies undeniably fit with major events related to this transformative journey. There is a single event that is undoubtedly the most important catalyzing event of Jaime's redemption story, which is the loss of Jaime's hand. This is because I believe Jaime forges his hero's sword, as phrased in the Azor Ahai prophecy, by shedding his Kingslayer persona. In order to rid himself of the Kingslayer, he must first lose the symbolic representation of this perceived corruption, his sword hand. Jaime states, "I was that hand," directly linking his character to his sword hand. When Qyburn is treating Jaime's stump, he says he is removing the corruption, a potential double meaning. That double meaning is illustrated even more clearly when, in another scene, Qyburn says we've stymied the corruption. Jaime repeats the phrase with emphasis, showing its importance. That is, while Qyburn has stymied the physical corruption, Jaime repeats the phrase to show us that he has stymied his corruption of character. Cersei too says things change once Jaime loses his hand, calling Jaime's hand a rather important part of him. Cersei prefers the corrupted Kingslayer persona. Jaime's transformation is undesirable in Cersei's eyes. So, forging a hero's sword is metaphorical for forging a hero's character, or allowing the hero to surface, being reborn as Jaime. This begins to occur immediately after Jaime loses that sword hand, an event that was set into motion when Jaime selflessly attempted to save Brienne's life. If you recall, in order to be the hero, prophecy states that Jaime must forge his sword 3 times. I believe this is because with each attempt, his connection to Cersei corrupts him, necessitating multiple forgings. This cycle will eventually lead to the fulfillment of the Valonqar and the Nissa Nissa Azor Ahai prophecies in the same act, the death of Cersei at the hand of Jaime. If you are unfamiliar, the books discuss a prophesized hero, Azor Ahai, that will save man from the White Walkers. The prophecy is written in 3 parts, each of which can be explained using events from Jaime's redemption story. He labored for 30 days and 30 nights until it was done. However, when he went to temper it in the water, the sword broke. He was not one to give up easily, so he started over. After Jaime loses his hand, he begins his ascent. His first attempt to shed the Kingslayer occurs when he shares the King Aerys story at Harrenhal in the bath with Brienne.
Tell me if your precious Brandy commanded you to kill your own father and stand by while thousands of men, women, and children burned alive, would you have done it? Would you have kept your oath then?
He is tempering Jaime in water by confessing the story of the Kingslayer, a sign that we will begin to see a transformation exists in this odd line that appears in the book and television. Not so hard, you'll rub the skin off, may serve as another clue. I believe this is a subtle reference to the first act of change, shedding his skin. Jaime proceeds to tell the story of how he saved King's Landing from the Mad King Aerys. After Jaime completes his confession, the water had grown cool. When Jaime opened his eyes, he found himself staring at the stump of his sword hand. the hand that made him the Kingslayer. The goat had robbed him of his glory and his shame, both at once. Leaving what? Who am I now? Jaime subsequently passes out in the bath. The word broken can be used to describe Jaime's physical state at that moment. Brienne calls out for help, referring to him as the Kingslayer, but he replies, "My name is Jaime." An important clue to that which is listed above, emphasizing the opposition of those two constructs. What happens after that scene continues the hero's story. However, Jaime is corrupted by his love for Cersei. His continual references to "the things I do for love" is a reminder that he engages in questionable moral behavior for Cersei's sake alone. Immediately prior to his second redemptive act, Jaime faces the Kingslayer directly by reviewing the history of the Kingsguard. Here, he tells Joffrey I still have time to do good deeds. That exchange causes him to face his past and desire to reforge his sword a second time.
So Jaime Lannister. Someone forgot to write down all your great deeds.
There's still time.
The second time he took 50 days and 50 nights to make the sword, even better than the first. To temper it this time, he captured a lion and he drove the sword into its heart, but once more the steel shattered. Jaime's second attempt to shed the Kingslayer occurs when he defies Tywin and Cersei. He does so by freeing Tyrion from the cells after he is implicated in Joffrey's death. He additionally confesses the truth in regard to his role in the TYSHA story. Lightbringer imagery may be at play, as we see Jaime predominantly carrying the torch in the dungeon. As soon as Jaime releases Tyrion from prison, Tyrion goes to the Tower of the Hand to confront Tywin. There's plenty of lion imagery as Tyrion enters the Tower of the Hand. It feels like they're shoving it right in our faces, really. Shae even mutters, "My lion." There's no doubt this is purposeful. However, there are two ways to approach this part of the myth, depending on whether we are addressing the TV or book version of the events. If you are not familiar with the books, TYSHA was Tyrion's first wife.
First, my father had Jaime tell me the truth. The girl was a whore, you see. Jaime had arranged the whole thing.
The road, the rapers, all of it. He thought it was time I had a woman.
When Tywin discovered Tyrion was married to TYSHA, he had Jaime tell Tyrion that TYSHA was not in love, but a paid whore. Tywin then ordered his guards to gang rape TYSHA while Tyrion watched. This is a very painful subject for Tyrion. When Jaime releases Tyrion from his cell, Jaime confesses that TYSHA was not a whore, and Jaime was always aware of this lie. With that confession, Jaime attempts once again to rid himself of the Kingslayer. Jaime allowed, even aided in Tyrion's imprisonment. In this case, Tyrion is the captured lion. Jaime's confession is devastating for Tyrion, and he drives the sword into the lion's heart. After Tyrion is released, he finds his current love, Shae, in his father's bed, causing him to kill Tywin. In the TV version, in order to simplify the events, the showrunners chose to account for this prophecy by making Tywin the lion, who is shot in the heart by Tyrion as a result of Jaime's actions. There's an interesting clue in Game of Thrones that strengthens the validity of that theory. In A Storm of Swords, Tywin is shot once in the gut. However, in Game of Thrones, he is struck again, in the heart. There's really no reason to include that second shot, except to account for the prophecy. However, Jaime did not kill Tywin directly, right? So, why would he believe that it's his fault? How would it impact his hero's journey? There's an important scene where Cersei blames Jaime, and so he blames himself. Tyrion might be a monster, but at least he killed our father on purpose. You killed him by mistake, with stupidity. Jaime is told not only he murdered Tywin, but also his sense of moral responsibility caused it. Due to Cersei's influence, Jaime slips once again into Kingslayer character. Immediately prior to the potential third act, he faces Edmure Tully. Edmure gives a long, important speech about Jaime and his character. As a result, Jaime states that he would throw Edmure's baby into the river for Cersei. Then, the phrase reminds Jaime again of what being the Kingslayer means immediately prior to returning to King's Landing in Season 6, Episode 10. This was when Walder Frey basically told Jaime that we are the same. both encounters setting the stage for the final act. The third time, with a heavy heart, for he knew beforehand what he must do to finish the blade. He worked for 100 days and nights until it was finished. This time, he called for his wife, Nissa, and he asked her to bare her breast. After success at River Run, Jaime returns to King's Landing and he finds the sept burned to the ground. Cersei has murdered the Faith Militant, along with many innocent citizens. Side note, Jaime likely saved the lives of many of these same people when he killed the Mad King. Jaime sees Cersei on the throne, and he understands that he must kill her. He knows what he must do to finish the blade. Killing Cersei will finish Jaime's blade, by removing her corrupting influence permanently. It's only a matter of time. In my view, the importance of this event is highlighted by one of the signs of Azor Ahai revealing itself. The symbol for the Faith Militant is the red star. Furthermore, each recruit of the Faith Militant is marked with a red star. I believe the bleeding red star is a reference to the mass murder of the Faith Militant, which occurred at the Sept of Baelor. A clue is given to us here. He drove his sword into her bare breast, her soul combining with the steel of the sword, creating Lightbringer, while her cry of anguish and ecstasy left a crack across the face of the moon. Jaime and Cersei have the only relationship fitting of the prophecy. Theirs is a love that has been the focus of the series. No other characters could meet and exhibit a deep, meaningful love in 2 short seasons. Theories that propose Brienne as Nissa fall short. Brienne's role is no substitute for Cersei, as Jaime and Brienne's is a relationship of respect and admiration, not profound love. At best, Brienne serves as a role model and catalyst for Jaime's journey. Other theories that cite Jon or Dany in previous deaths of loved ones do not take into account that Lightbringer is prophesied to appear immediately after the death of Nissa. The only character that consistently fights and kills for another, all while remaining physically attached to that character for the whole series and refusing to leave their side, is Jaime in regard to his dedication to Cersei. This is telling. That being said, just as in other parts of the myth, I think we should look for more figurative aspects of the prophecy to reveal themselves. Yes, I believe this is describing the death of Cersei, but the details are still hazy. Look for symbolism around baring her breast, or the combining of a steel and soul in the moon. Throughout the books, there are references to Jaime and Cersei dying together. While one could take that literally, and as evidence against a theory, I believe it's more appropriate to relate the death of the twins into the overarching theory outlined here. Yes, the Kingslayer will die with Cersei, but Jaime will not. In killing Cersei, Jaime will be reborn as Azor Ahai, completing the forging of the hero's sword. Another prophecy of A Song of Ice and Fire is that of the Valonqar. When she was a child, Cersei Lannister visited Maggie the Frog, who told her that all of her children would die, and that Cersei would die at the hands of the Valonqar. Valonqar is the word for little brother in High Valyrian. Cersei has long believed that Tyrion to be the Valonqar. However, I believe Jaime is not only the Valonqar, but in the same act, he will fulfill the Valonqar and Nissa prophecies. Evidence shows that these 2 prophecies are linked. After the deaths of her children, Cersei has openly contemplated whether or not she could have prevented them. She wonders if Maggie the Frog's prophecies were accurate. Cersei understands that if the Valonqar prophecy is true, she could not have changed their fate. If Maggie the Frog's prophecy is true, she would not feel responsible for their demise. For this reason, when Cersei realizes that Jaime is the Valonqar, she would be in both anguish and ecstasy, and dying due to her understanding that the prophecy holds and her children were marked for death. Her death will bring her relief, even joy. Who else would be in ecstasy during death? In my opinion, this fact cohesively links Cersei, Nissa, and the Valonqar prophecies. So some of you might be asking, how could Cersei be strangled via the Valonqar prophecy and also be Nissa and killed by Lightbringer? This is purposeful deception. Lightbringer will not be a sword itself, but the return of Jaime's sword hand ablaze. A fiery hand is Lightbringer. What was once Jaime's corruption embodied is reborn, the mark of a prophesized hero. Once the best swordsman in Westeros, Jaime will be whole once again. One very strong piece of visual evidence occurs when Mira asks Jojen, "When will we know it's the end?" And Jojen replies,
"How will we know the end?"
You'll know.
Here is another direct reference to Jaime's fiery hand. His hand burned, still, long after they had snuffed out the torch that they'd used to sear the bloody stump. Days after, he could still feel the fire lancing up his arm, and his fingers twisting in flames, the fingers he no longer had. Another passage from A Feast for Crows makes yet another reference. In his dreams, Jaime always had two hands. One was made of gold, but it worked just like the other. Recall too, Tyrion says to Cersei, "The day will come when you feel safe and happy, but your joy will turn to ashes in your mouth." That comment makes it seem as if the two will never meet again. Could it be that Tyrion dies before Cersei, so Cersei believes she has avoided the prophecy? Perhaps she feels safe because she believes she will not die at the hands of the Valonqar. Then, when Jaime strangles her with a fiery hand, it will literally leave ashes in her mouth. This, too, is another piece of evidence linking Cersei, the Valonqar, and Nissa prophecies. Don't forget, Cersei points out how cold Jaime's new hand is. Jaime is the hero. He displayed a pattern of putting others before himself. Jaime is known for saving King's Landing from the Mad King Aerys, but not for the throne or recognition. In fact, he suffers for that deed. Jaime routinely preserves life and avoids conflict, even at Riverrun. Riverrun, when compared to Dragon's Bay and the Battle of the Bastards, is a peaceful resolution. As much as I enjoyed those conflicts from a purely aesthetic perspective, I think there's a reason they occurred at the same time. We can see the leadership styles directly compared among Jaime, Jon, and Dany. Jaime is a champion for all, unlike Dany or Jon, who brutally kill those that oppose them. In my opinion, Jaime is a leader and a warrior that is not motivated by his own greed for power, land, etc., and is much more hesitant to engage in violent action. We also know the White Walkers are capable of negotiation and peace. Remember Craster and his deal to provide male children in return for peace with the White Walkers. Perhaps this is how Jaime will resolve the conflict with the White Walkers, through diplomacy. I firmly believe that George R. R. Martin will not end the story with war being the ultimate resolve. Diplomacy and peace will be the answer. George R. R. Martin discusses the major theme as conflict of the human heart, and that war sucks. This is Jaime's story. What could be more painful than sacrificing oneself? Sacrificing a loved one that you consider to be a part of yourself, your twin, and your one true love. The hero being the hero all along is boring. Redemption and growth are interesting. Lannisters aren't evil because they're Lannisters. Starks aren't good because they're Starks. Anyone is redeemable and or corruptible. So, maybe our unlikely hero will save Westeros from the White Walkers with his fiery hand ablaze. At its conclusion, then, we will have our Song of Ice and Fire. There are a couple side notes that I want to mention as well. During Season 7, Episode 7, Jon is demonstrating how to kill a White in the Dragon Pit. As Jaime Lannister is watching, Jon burns the White's hand. Why did he choose to burn the hand only? Maybe D&D are giving us a bit of a hint. Also in Season 7, Episode 7, as Jaime rides away from Cersei, we see him put his golden hand inside of the glove. A single snowflake falls on the glove, and the snow immediately melts. But hands of gold are always cold, aren't they?
I still have my right hand.
Plan on growing it back.
I still have my right hand.
Plan on growing it back.